I'm Lindsay, and welcome to the Intuitive Psychologist podcast. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've been in the mental health field for over 15 years. During my spiritual awakening, I've realized that psychology is really missing the mark. I believe that traditional therapy combined with spirituality can actually lead to long-term healing and growth. And I've actually had the luxury of seeing this happen within my own private practice, where I've tried to incorporate the two together. My intention for this podcast is to discuss my opinions about spirituality and therapy, and I like to do it in a fun way. My hope is that I'll inspire other people to explore different ways to improve their lives. But I'd also like to normalize what many people have been going through or are currently going through, so that you can know that you're not alone and that you're not crazy. And maybe along the way I can inspire a few therapists along the way to actually think outside the box and to offer their own version of intuitive healing. If this is interesting to you, then join me on this journey as we try to have fun and explore an informal way to bridge the gap between psychology and spirituality. Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's the way I'm making my podcast right now. And it's free. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor is going to distribute your podcast to all the major important places you would ever want, like Spotify and Apple and so many more places. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. I love it. It's so simple. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Comfy real quick.
Okay.
Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, Lily. She and I met through Soberish, and come to find out, we actually are probably either soul sisters or like spiritual twins roaming this earth, and we finally got to re-meet each other. So I'm going to have Lily come on here and introduce herself, and we'll talk a little bit about her spiritual journey, her spiritual awakening, her experience, her thoughts about mental health, and just sort of have fun chit-chatting. So Lily, take it away.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so super crazy how we are really, really alike in a lot of different ways. Yeah, so that was awesome finding that out. But my entry into the spiritual world starts with me being, I was a Christian, or, forced into Christianity as a kid. I started as Catholic with my grandparents, probably up until I was about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. And I went to go live with my parents because both of my parents were in the military. So they would be gone. They would go to Okinawa and things like that. So I lived with my grandparents for a good amount of time until my parents both got stateside. And then we moved to Connecticut. So I moved with my parents when I was about 9 to Connecticut. We were, just regular Christians. But then when we moved, we got stationed in North Carolina when I was about 12. And I don't know what happened, but my mom decided that we were going to become non-denominational. And I'd only been Catholic all my life. So we go to this new church, and it was insanity to me. Like as a Catholic, you're just sitting down and you stand up and then you kneel, and it's all very controlled and concise and everything. But then we get to this non-denominational church, and these people are running and screaming. And I didn't understand what was happening. But I got really into that for a long time. So became pretty interested and invested in non-denominational Christianity. To the point where I was so obsessive with it that, I really call myself like a really judgmental religious bitch. I mean, I was putting people in hell. I was if you were gay or homosexuality, it was all, you're ruining the community. It was really bad. Like I was awful. Um, but then I moved to Colorado about 5 years ago. So, I mean, all this time from the time I was 12 until 5 years ago, I'm 38 now. So, I was what, 33? I've been this religious Christian person. And I got really, really, I got so far into Christianity, I left other religious Christians behind. Like, I was paranoid. I was into like the Illuminati. I thought everything was satanic, demonic. I thought the Luciferians were after us. If you were watching mainstream TV, they were getting into your head. I didn't listen to anything on like no regular TV, no regular music. Um,
Mm.
I only listened to Christian music, like real literally Christian music on the radio, like K Love or something. I can't remember. So I got really bad. But then I moved to Colorado about 5 years ago. And I was still really religious, but somehow I got talked into. I told this on Jess's podcast where I almost joined a cult. Well, I slightly did, but I didn't join it deeply. Like I wasn't fully invested because my red flags just kept going off, right? So, but they were really nice. Like they would come and pick me up. They would take me, you to pick the kids up, and they would feed us. And it was a bunch of Mexicans, but it was a Korean church. There weren't any Koreans though, so that was strange. Okay, but it and so we go to church, but it was like we were praying in Korean and we would sing in Korean. And I think what really started to kind of like click my feelers was I didn't know what they were saying, right? Like I don't know what these words are, and I'm trying to follow along and I'm trying to sing, but who and what am I praying to, right? And they really opened my eyes to a lot of actual inaccuracies of what the Christian church was teaching us. And so we would have these really in-depth Bible studies. This lady who would come and pick me up. I mean, and that's why I really fell deeply into it because I felt like I was learning some real things, right? Like this was the real path to spirit, to God. Well, anyway, one day, I get really aggravated. I don't get aggravated really fast, but like once I'm aggravated, there's nothing you can do to unaggravate me. So I worked two jobs and I was in school. And so when I started going to this Korean Mexican church, it was like in the summertime. But then fall hit and my kids were back in school and I was working two jobs and going to school at the time. So I didn't have as much time to dedicate to this, okay? Well, this lady wouldn't back off of me. She would call me, she would come to my house and she kept doing it to the point where I got really pissed off and I told her to fuck off. Like like stop calling me. I'm busy. Like I appreciate the concern, but I will come when I have a chance. It's just my life is kind of moving forward right now. Like I don't need to go to church every day now. I don't need to do this. Like I'm busy. Well, anyway, it got to the point that I had to block her number. I'd had to tell my neighbors like, hey, tell this lady I don't live here anymore. I had to move stuff off of my front porch so that she doesn't know that I'm there. Like it got really bad. And because she was so extreme, it felt like previous Christianity. And then that made me more upset. So then I just decided, you know what? All of this shit is stupid. Like all of these people are just insane and I don't like it. So I stopped believing in anything. I was just like, it's all too much. Just based on the lies that I found, the inaccuracies, just all the stuff she's telling me, I'm just putting all this stuff together. And I'm like, these people have been lying to me all my life. So if everyone is lying to me, then none of this must be true. I don't need to believe in any of it. So I went kind of atheist for about a year where I was like, don't talk to me about God. Don't talk to me about Jesus. None of this shit is real. Don't even talk to me about holidays. Like, if you celebrate the Christian holidays, you can fuck off too. Um, so I like went completely the opposite way. But then I was at work one day and I was really bored, and I don't know how I even came across this, but I really like taking quizzes. So I was taking these BuzzFeed quizzes, and then I got obsessed with more quizzes. And somehow I got onto this. Like, I got off of BuzzFeed at the time. It's like taking me all over stuff, and I'm just bored, just clicking around at work. And I get to this quiz that asks like what your true spirituality is, right? And I didn't mind. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's take this quiz. It was a pretty in-depth quiz, and at the end of it, it said you're Wiccan. And all my life I had been told that Wiccan or witches really are like evil, it's satanic, and that really threw me for a second, like, what? Really? Based on, my answers, I'm Wiccan. That's strange. So I was like, well, and what even is it? So I'm just Googling it, right? I get down this weird rabbit hole whenever I care about things for like literally 5 seconds. I'll get really obsessed with stuff, but then I lose my interest. So I got really obsessed with this for about 3 months, Googling Wiccan, learning all about all of this stuff, trying to figure out. And I was like, okay, this feels this feels like me. And I finally felt like all my life, all the pieces of who I am or the things that I believed even when I was Christian finally came to it, like the puzzle pieces fit. And I was really able to let go a lot of the judgments that I had, that because I didn't truly believe in them. It's just that I thought that I had to be able to get into this place called heaven. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I realized, like, I don't have to judge people who are homosexual. What That doesn't have anything to do with me. I don't, I don't know what you call it. Like, I don't identify that way, but also it doesn't bother me. Like, it really truly doesn't. Like, I love it. It's fine. I used to be, but I will also, like, didn't have really Christian values, I would say. So like when people are going off about abortion, I always felt like if I'm not having one, then I don't understand why it would bother me. And I never understood why it would
Mm-hmm.
bother other people. If you don't believe in abortion, then you don't have one. You should be good, I feel. Like, you can't tell other people what to do. And then, well, but as luck would have it, two of my kids are queer. So, how's that for karma, right? For me, like, being as judgy as I was in the beginning of my life, based upon what other people have told me, I now have to kind of eat my words and just be really open and just say, you know what? Okay, cool. It's all right. When my kid told me she was pansexual, I was like, what the fuck is that? What is pan? I don't know. So I had to Google it, and I was like, oh, she like saw everything. Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right. And then I've got another kid who's non-binary, wants to be a boy, and I'm like, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. It's all good. It's all good. It's not my life. And I really I had to truly become okay with not being in charge of things and also not using something to stifle my kids. So they don't even know that they can't tell people things like that. If that make, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they don't have any fear of being who they are, which is probably my greatest parenting win, is just that they just are who they are. And they were really open and honest with me and able to just come and tell me, like, Mom, yeah, like, whoever, whatever. And I just was like, okay, all right, cool. And I just researched things that I don't know. And there you go. And it's only because I left this judgmental, you know, hypocrisy, that I'm able to just finally be free and be me and be a great parent and a great wife and be all of these open things, because there's no rules in my life as far as like what's right and wrong. It's just what I think is right and wrong. I don't have to follow what everybody else thinks is right and wrong. It's just what works for me. And there's my
Mm-hmm.
story.
Wow. So 4 years you've been Wiccan, give or
No,
take?
let's see. So maybe three, maybe about 3 years I've been Wiccan. Um, yeah, and I'm still new to it, so I still learn a lot. But yeah, I've been really like able to call myself that for about 3 years now.
So when I was a teenager, I grew up in a pretty white, straight-laced kind of upbringing for 18 years. That's why as soon as 18 hit, I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Got to experience some culture. I got to go experience some non-cold weather. But I think that part of me finding my spirituality, and because I felt so different than my community, which was, middle to upper class white people, and I was middle to lower class, not lower class, but my parents divorced when I was like eighth or ninth grade, and so we didn't have money. Like my mom said that she was broke enough that we could have been on food stamps. And so I never fit in with the kids there. And I always felt different or other. And so for me, my way of being other was A, punk rock, and B, being a witch. Well, I wasn't a witch, but I tried. I like had a couple of friends that were witches and or tried again, big emphasis on the try. But we had like a couple of books that we probably got from like Barnes and Noble or Urban Outfitter, like who knows, like super vanilla crap. But like I tried to play around with that, like going to cemeteries, tried to do spells. Nothing worked. So I was like, all right, I guess this is a crock of shit. But like when I think of Wiccan, I don't know if I'm transcribing witches with Wiccan or if it's like they're in the same ballpark. Because up until like the last year or so, I really haven't even begun to explore the possibility of any sort of like witchness within myself. And I don't call myself a witch because like I don't, I mean, I fuck around with spells and I've got some books and I read a really great book called The Witch or something
Hmm.
like that. Yeah. But can you describe, like, am I totally off? Wiccan and witch, are they two totally
No,
separate
they're
things? Are they similar in
no,
any
they're
way?
I would say they're interchangeable.
Oh, cool.
I do so I would say that Wiccan is the umbrella term for the religion, right? It's the paganism of paganism, okay, which is the which would be Christianity, right?
Okay.
Then Wiccan would be like Catholic. It's a just a subset to me, okay,
Okay.
of paganism. So there's different pagans. You could be any sort of pagan. I just happen to be Wiccan, okay? And but I would say that Wiccan is witch. That's what we would call ourselves, which is warlocks, whatever. We do spells. Yeah, we do
Ooh.
intentions and well, whatever you call it, spells, intentions,
Yeah.
manifestations, prayers. Right?
All
They're
the
all
same,
the
right?
same, right? Um, yeah, they're all the same. But yeah, so I would call myself witch. I just think that there's such a bad connotation to negative connotation to it that I only say it around people I feel really comfortable with. So my whole family knows that
Mm-hmm.
I'm a witch. They call me that, and they're like, "Oh, it's because you're a witch." But if I'm talking to people who don't know me, I just say I'm Wiccan, and maybe they know, maybe
Yeah.
they don't. But I feel like it leads them less to try to put me under a Satanist or some kind of baby eating religion. If I say Wiccan, versus if I say, "Oh yeah, I'm a witch," because then the first next thing is, "Oh, you don't believe in God," and "Oh, you eat babies and sacrifice people under the full moon," or whatever the fuck. I don't know. People are so strange. But I've always like ever since I was a kid, even though I was super religious and into certain things, witches and vampires and the supernatural always really appealed to me, and I always wished I was. So when I found out that I really resonated with that. Like something told me, like, this is what you are. And I was just like, what? Okay. This works for me. Like, I would probably have been really pissed off if they said, like, yeah, you're Pentecostal, really, actually, truly.
Oh
No,
God, could you
I can't, because I
imagine?
know Pentecostal
That
people.
was it. Lily, that was the word.
Holy
Pentecostal. Remember from
shit.
the podcast
That's
we
it.
did? It's
You're right.
Pentecostal.
I know a
Yes.
lot of
Shit.
Pentecostal people, and
Ooh,
they
yes.
are they are the weirdest of the Christians.
Yes, they
I would
are.
say they are the deepest of, like, I couldn't even have been Pentecostal. They're too strict. Mormons and Pentecostals, I think, are the
Yes.
strictest of the religions, and I couldn't do it.
I have a friend who's like in the Mormon family. And of course, now this is the one that I'm not going to remember until our next podcast together, which you'll have to listen to Lily's podcast so you know what we're talking about. So I'm not going to give too much info so that you have that teaser to go check it out. But there's something else that's like a Mormon, and I have a friend who is that, and I was shocked. Who are the ones that Jehovah's
Oh
Witness? There we
gosh,
go.
they
Woo, I got it.
are they're pretty strict as well, In fact, they don't celebrate
Yes.
birthdays or
Nope.
holidays. That's even
No
worse.
alcohol. Mm-hmm. I agree. I, in fact, we had one at one of the jobs I was just at, and I didn't know that she was Jehovah's Witness. And so I was taking around a birthday card and I handed it to her and I was like, hey, it's so and so's birthday. You want to sign the card? And she was like, no, I'm Jehovah's Witness. I don't celebrate birthdays. And I was like, damn, that's kind of harsh. Like, just because you don't celebrate doesn't mean the rest of us,
Can't.
don't celebrate
Yeah.
shit. Just sign your name for Christ's sake.
That's what I mean. Okay, so that's a perfect example of not even being able to be open-minded enough to set aside your belief to celebrate something else. Like, you don't celebrate birthdays, right? But you don't celebrate your birthday. Maybe you don't celebrate other people's birthday, but someone else does. So how hard is it to write your
Mm-hmm.
name, right? Just to it's I don't know, it's like a um oh gosh, what is this about words we can't think of?
I don't
It's
know.
like a consideration thing, right? So like I said about the abortion, it's you don't have to do it, but you don't also have to put anybody into a box and a bubble. So okay, you don't celebrate birthdays, cool, but I don't celebrate Christmas per se. I will tell people Happy Saturnalia if they wish me a Merry Christmas or whatever. But
That
it
probably
does,
fucks
it
them up,
does. I
huh?
swear it does. They're always like,
What?
what is that? And then I go into this long historical meaning about what Christmas really was. But anyway, but it when people say it to me, I don't celebrate Christmas. I just go, happy
Right.
holidays to you too. Or, happy Saturnalia
Yeah.
to you too, because I'm really petty and people don't know what it means. Also, you don't know what you're celebrating. So I just like to be a jerk, right? But I'm just also still not going to go, mm. Thank you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it takes nothing to make other people happy. I
Right.
don't do it, but my kids are still kids. So even when I didn't celebrate Christmas, like at my highest moment of like, I don't do this anymore, I still bought them, I would call it end of the year gifts, right? I would just because I just refuse to say Christmas. But I would still give them gifts because they're kids and I don't want to force my
Yeah.
beliefs upon them. So what I believe doesn't have to be anything that you believe. I've always told them, you guys are free to, well, I say always, but within the past like 4 or 5 years, I've told them, you guys are free to believe whatever you believe. Fortunately, they, like, my oldest believes, she follows in what I believe, but my middle one, my 13-year-old, she don't give a shit about none of it. She doesn't believe I'm a witch at all. She doesn't believe in Harry Potter. Bless my soul. I don't understand whose kid she is, but she's just no belief. She doesn't have any belief at all. And that's okay. Like, I don't even care. It's just whatever makes you happy. But my husband
Yep.
is a teeter-tottering Christian sort of person. And so he loves Christmas. He gets really excited about Easter, all of those crazy things, even though every Easter I'm always like, a bunny doesn't lay eggs and it makes no sense and I'm not celebrating it. And we just go, and he's just like, I know it's cool, but it's just for the kids. And I'm like, why are they chasing around trying to find eggs? Are we celebrating their fertility? Because if we are, then you and I need to have a conversation because you don't want them to be extremely fertile, do you? And whatever. So it's just like, just get into this thing where he's like, they can't date until they're 30. And I'm like, but you're celebrating their fertility. And then he's always like, oh, okay. Yes, the eggs. They're eggs. It's what we're celebrating from Ishtar. And he's always like, whatever, they're kids. So anyway, we never even argue about it. But we put up a Christmas tree. Even though I don't celebrate Christmas. Why? Because why would I steal that from the person I love? You know what I mean? Why would
Right,
I break
right.
him down and take away something that's truly really makes him happy? So he puts up a Christmas tree, but then he lets me decorate it the way I want. So
Oh,
I
that's
decorate it
nice.
as plainly as possible. One light. You get one color of lights. He's like, let's go crazy. Put all the lights. And I'm like, you can have white lights. And he's like, okay, fine. And then we'll get like one color balls. Like, and we'll do the balls and everything. And we have fun with it. And even though I don't give a shit about it, he really enjoys it's like one of the happiest times of his childhood. His mom died when he was 8. So it's just like, this is a fun thing for him. So why should I take that away? Doesn't matter what I believe. I love him, right? And that's what I don't understand. Like this Christianity is supposed to be based on love, and yet it's so much hate filled. And once you get away
Mm-hmm.
from the hate filled loved religion, you really actually find more love in yourself. At least I did. I
Yeah,
did. I did.
exactly.
I became a more loving person to everyone when I didn't have limitations on my love. So,
Yeah, I never jived with it. Never once. It just always like I always had an icky feeling to be around it, and just as soon as I kind of realized what I was, which was just the blanket term spiritual, I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is my thing because it is whatever I want it to be and it can change. And I don't worship to anybody. Like my quote unquote God is simply like just love. It's just unconditional love, which is a state of being, which we all will eventually come back to, and so it was so freeing to just let that all go. But my problem was, I went from like covertly, uh, like everyone was religious, but it wasn't, you weren't shunned in the same way as like when I left one sort of like, okay, it's all white community with super racist community that pretends like they're all cool, but they're really not because I'm white. So I hear what people actually say and think and how they act, and was like, I need to get out of that because it just, I don't know, it's so weird. Not to, yeah, that's a different conversation, but it was so weird to go from like that and to escape that and say, I want something different. I want to be around people that aren't like me, that are going to teach me, different ways to think, feel, eat. I wanted to try different food, like all these different things. And it was like religious undertone, but it wasn't in your face. And so then I moved to the South, which did provide a lot more non-whiteness, which was awesome. But then the religion was slammed down my throat. And I was very judged, as I know because this is one of our commonalities, is that we both spent a lot of our life in the South, and it was just everything was praise Jesus,
ugh.
thank you Jesus, let's pray to Jesus before we eat. Well, Jesus did this for me, and it's like, no, bitch, you're the one that fucking did that work. And it was just, I mean, the people were nice, and I think that to a certain extent there's that southern charm to your face, and then that like backstab you, um, you know, when people aren't in front of your face, that I didn't like, but they were so nice, and it did feel like a family to be down there. But yeah, the religion was really tough for me to be around that. So when I moved here to California, And it was just sort of that whole like, no, you get culture, you get to have different perspectives, and you get to have whatever fucking religion or spirituality that you want. And not only that, but we're going to have all this hippy dippy trippy shit like just down the street, anywhere you go. And nobody's going to really judge you if you are full blown granola, or if you are Hindu, or if you are Christian, or if you're just spiritual. Like all of it goes here. And that's what I love about being in California, and it's going to be hard for me to leave this state because this is my fourth state living in, and I just feel the most at home and at peace and the least judged and the most free to sort of be me, and people just like, yep, cool, all right, not what I think or not what I feel or what have you. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
feel
know.
the same way about Colorado. I don't see myself leaving, um, un unless, nah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people want to go to Arizona or whatever, but I feel like it's hot.
Why?
Just like feeling like,
They're conservative as fuck over
what
there, aren't
isn't
they?
it? What is I don't know, is it Sedona?
Sedona.
So a lot of people are feeling
Yeah.
called either to Colorado or Sedona, right? And I don't feel a calling to Arizona in any way. It's hot. I lived in the hot.
Uh-uh.
I'm cool with it. Like I'm good. If I don't feel called to go to Sedona in any way, shape, or form, I feel like Colorado is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, there are some issues. I'd say like the rent issue is a big deal, and there's racism here. It's not as outright as it is in Louisiana. So I will take that. Um, but no one judges, like, as far as that's a separate thing. But like my religious freedom here is so great, that I can't see ever going backwards. Like I can't even imagine that there was a time when I did have to, you know, be around. Like I just had you were it's just so everywhere. Like you said, like everything is about God and Jesus. It's literally suffocating. And now when I go back home, I almost can only do a couple days down there. Like, because I've got everybody like, oh, I pray for you. And I tell them, please don't. I don't need it. Just, I'm okay. I'd rather you didn't pray for me at all. And it's just, I can't even fake it anymore. Like, I could in the beginning, I could fake it a little bit, when I was going down there. And um, people would say things to me, and they would just, whatever. And I was just, I would go along with it. I'd And now it's just like eating at me. Like I just like I'm not well, I don't believe in Christianity. And so if you say that, that's almost like a slap in somebody's face. They cannot
Yeah.
believe what you've just told them. And it's like they almost stop looking at you the same. It's like I'm still the same person. I just don't believe in the made up God you have. I have my own made up God. That has been here for decades, centuries beyond Jesus. The
Well, yeah, didn't Christianity steal from pagans?
yeah,
Isn't
but
it
but
all
yeah,
just
and even
robbery?
so, you know, my Wiccan belief is based on African gods. So Yoruban gods, who are the oldest gods in the world. They're older than the pagan gods. They're older than, they're old. I mean, Jesus is probably the newest of the gods, right? He's only 2,000 years old,
Mm.
whereas all the other gods are tens of centuries old, because those places were older. But Yoruba is the oldest civilization in the world. So I would say that would be where the story, even if you could think, if you had to, where Adam and Eve even would have originated from, would be from the Yoruban
Mm.
gods and goddesses of Africa. If we're talking about Pangea before everything moved. So anyway, that's where my goddess and god and goddesses come from, is Yoruban gods. So um, they're just, and they were lost. It's like when the slaves came over on the ships, a lot of the Afro Latino beliefs that you find like in the Caribbean, they are based on Yoruban gods and goddesses. Like so, um, Yamaya and Oshun and things like that. So all of those beliefs down in the Caribbean still kind of stayed with them, and they've kind of mixed them into voodoo and Catholicism. So it's all mixed up into and Santeria and all of those things, right? Those all come from the slaves that came over, and they just mixed it all together. Mine is I just believe in what happened before they mixed it in, and there
Mm,
were a lot of slaves that, well, they didn't make it, they jumped, they died, they killed themselves, or they just brought their beliefs over. But the slaves that came to the United States, they couldn't keep their beliefs, those were beaten out of them, right? Whereas
yeah.
the slaves that were in the Caribbean areas in the South and South American areas, they still have those passed down African beliefs, and they've just mixed them in. They hid them and they mixed them and stuff like that. So that's what I that's what I believe. I don't believe. I'm not that I don't believe in like the Greek and pagan gods and goddesses from Europe, but it's just not. I don't vibe it as much, but I also
Yeah.
believe in them, if that makes sense. It's just not my thing, right? So I believe in all the gods and
No, that makes
goddesses. I
sense.
think they're all real. And I don't want to insult any of them. So
I'm sure they're
yeah.
all powerful as fuck. And then do you do like Coventry or any sort of like group in Colorado that are also Wiccans and um, you do your spell work or
Um,
intentions together?
I have contemplated the idea of it, except I don't like going around people. Um, so I have some groups that I'm in online, just kind of trying to get into the idea of being around a coven, but I don't like I'll like agree to something and then change my mind. So I have joined several um covens in Colorado, and they'll invite me to things, and then on one day I'll be like, "Yes, I can't wait to go on the full moon." And then when that day comes, I'm just like, um, I don't want to go anywhere. And I actually don't know if it's because the full moon really affects me deeply and it makes me super weird and tired
Hmm.
and cranky and all of these things. And then I don't want to go, or if it's just a Pisces thing and I'm just lazy. Um, but I, no, at this point in time, I'm just a single witch with no coven, just, just freely.
You're like a
I just do
freelancer. You
my
just
own
do your
thing
own
and
thing.
come as it comes and goes. I don't put any rules or regulations on myself at all. I don't
I
I
like
do
that.
not put, have no boundaries. It just whatever I feel like doing is what I do.
I like that. And I think that's what really drew me to just this overarching, like, make my own spirituality. It's like it has, for me, it's like transformed. I think my awakening, I could say, started in 2009, and I fell asleep a few times along the way, um, but that is my thing. It's like I'm not the same person since 2009, and God forbid if I was still that crazy chick, and God forbid if I'm still this crazy chick in 5 or 10 years from now. Like, God forbid my husband and my dogs and my friends and family. But I want to grow with my spirituality or have my spirituality help to grow who I am. But I don't know. I think that you and I both agree on this as well, as like I'm totally anti-authority. I don't even like when people tell me what to do, and they're people I love and respect. I'm like, you need to say it to me in a way where it's like, by the way, have you thought of this? So then I can be like the one making the choice into following this rule. And it's like, oh God, tell me what to do. And I'm just like, no, no, and fuck you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that a Pisces thing, or is that just another one of those crazy things that we just happen to
I
be
don't
aligned
I,
on?
I think it's a Pisces thing, but also I don't know. I, I think like I don't like any rules. You know what I mean? And I feel like every Pisces that I've ever met, maybe with the exception of a few, right, that are just weird Pisces. They're like they just happen to be born Pisces, but they're like nowhere near Pisces for me at least. Because I always get along with Pisces, but there's two that I've met that I'm just like, I hate these two people. I literally hate them. I don't know what it is. They aggravate me, but I think it might be because their moon and rising sign, maybe, or overtaking their Piscesness, if that makes sense. But anyway, yeah, I
Mm.
think it's a Pisces thing, though. Like we're just not we don't like authority.
Makes sense if you think about Pisces being fish and water. We
Yeah,
just sort of flow, right? And then we're not Pisces in a
in the
fishbowl. We're
lake.
Pisces
Yeah,
like flowing in the
yeah.
current. Yeah,
I don't like to be told
that
what to
makes
do.
sense.
Or I like you to tell me what you expect of me, if that makes sense. Like this is what I you want from me, right? I can follow direct orders and but then go away. You know what I mean? Like just okay, thank you. You've given me the directions, thank you. Don't you know what I mean? But like if I feel like you're trying to constrict me or constrict like if I feel boxed in, it will literally infuriate me and I can't. I like will stop
Mm-hmm.
doing everything. In fact, when I was a kid, like when we'd be taking tests, it's so strange. And you know the teacher, I mean, they write the test. Like they wrote the test. It's their test. But they'd be walking up and down the aisle, and like as I'm doing my test, and I always like put my head. I like always have like one hand hiding my test paper, and I'm writing on it. Right? I don't know why, but I just like to hide my stuff. And if I have a teacher that walk up on me and stand over my shoulder and watch me, I will stop doing what I'm doing. I'll just stop and I'll just wait because I can't like get off of my throat. I can't. Why are you right here? And I've had teachers stand there like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like, I can't work like this. You're breathing on, like I can't." I've gotten in trouble for actually saying to several teachers like, "I can't do my test while you're standing here. I'm not cheating. Do you need like I'll be like I just
Fair
can't.
enough.
I need you to walk off because you're bothering me." And my mom would get really upset that I would like say stuff. But like it literally I no longer can think anymore. So I just hate any sort of
Yeah.
authority, like oppressive authority, I guess. Like, okay, you're the teacher, you're walking up and down, making sure people aren't cheating, but just walk and keep on walking. Don't like stop at me. What do
Right.
you want?
I
Oh
I
God, me
can't
either.
stand being micromanaged. I'm
Yep.
like, give me a framework, give me the basics as to what you want, and then give me the freedom to create this. And then don't fucking come at me when it's not exactly the way you wanted it. But like, allow me the freedom and know that and have the respect and dignity to be like, she can do this. And if it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be, is it close enough? Is it in the ballpark? Let's fucking flow with that because I hate being micromanaged. I hate it. Oh my God. Like, I get into fights with my husband anytime I'm like, you're micromanaging me. And he's like, I am not. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, it feels like it. And so, therefore, this is a problem. And I just cannot stand it. I can't. That's why part of me, like, couldn't survive at the prison because many people thinking that they know best. And it was all about their ego and how big their dick was. And just being like, just leave me alone. Tell me the basics, leave me alone. Don't fucking micromanage me because then you feel like you look like the big top dog here and that you've got the biggest dick of the room. I don't care. Shove all your dicks in each other's mouth. I don't care. Like, leave me alone. But yeah, I hate micromanaging. I hate people like hovering. I don't know if it's like COVID has been in essence like a blessing for me. I think because I'm highly empathic that I don't like to be around a lot of people. I've never liked big crowds or concerts. And so this whole like 6 foot distance and just stay home in general, I'm like, hallelujah, this is my thing. Like I'm very sad that so many people are being so like impacted by COVID. And I'm one of those few people where I'm like, I'm okay. Everything is fine. Everything isn't great, but everything is fine. I have a pretty big underlying medical condition where I cannot get COVID. It'll be deadly for me, but as long as I'm safe and I can stay home for, 4
Hmm.
months without leaving the house at all and be okay.
Yeah,
And I'm okay.
I'm the very same way. It's why it's one of the main reasons I hate my job. It's is micromanaging. Like I have my managers just all day long sending
Hmm.
emails. Did you do this? Stop doing what you're doing. Do this. Why didn't you do the first thing? I'm like, because you stop told me to you told me to do something else. And you only have 8 days in an hour, 8 hours in a day. And they're just like constantly, why isn't this? And who did and why didn't you do that? And it's just like you know, I just hate it so much. I work for a university. You would think that the most important thing would be students. Like this is what we should care about is students. But I spend most of my days chasing students who don't want to go to school versus spending my 8 hours helping and supporting students who are doing well in school and want to go to school. So all day long, my managers are just like, get this person. This is a red flag. What about this person? Why didn't they post in class? And it's just like, I don't know. No one chased me when I was in school. I don't understand why I have to. Yeah,
Oh my God. Are they
yeah,
really doing
it's
that with
I mean,
kids?
well, these people, our demographic isn't kids per se. Um,
I call them
Yeah,
kids if
so I
they're like
mean,
under
so
30.
yes, so our demographic I would say would be ages 25 to 50, right? Yeah, so
Oh
just
my
people
God.
who I get older people who have went to school and they've stopped school 20, 30 years ago and now they're ready, right? Or people who
Okay.
they had a kid and now they've got now they've they're ready to go back to school or they've never done school, and so it's all just we try to reach people who going to a campus school doesn't work because you are an adult, right? And you work. So, you need an
Yeah.
education, you want your bachelor's degree, but you don't have 5 hours in a goddamn day to to go to a campus school and do that because you're not a child, right? You're not 18 to 22. So the
Right.
demographic that we aim for are people who aren't your traditional student. Okay, so non-traditional students, okay, which is great. That's fine. So these sometimes are people who've never been, they don't understand computers, or maybe they do, and maybe they just things have happened and now they're ready to go back to class, which I love. I love some of these students are so amazing. Their stories are so amazing. They've been through hell and back. They don't have anyone to support them. No one ever told them that they could do it. And then they meet me, and I'm like, hey, you can do this. And they've been motivating themselves alone all this time. Okay. And then I come in and I'm like, you can do this. And I'm here to support you and I'm here to help you. But I spend the majority of my day chasing after people who aren't trying. So they missed an assignment. Now I've got to call you 3, 4 times a day. Hey, why didn't you post? Why didn't you post? Why didn't you post? What happened? I got to leave voicemails. I got to send emails. And my leadership, this is the
Oh.
managers. They're like, why didn't you call this person 3 times a day? Because people have caller ID. And
Ooh.
once you call them once, you leave a voicemail, you send an email. Um, if they don't respond after that, then I, I feel like it's an intentional thing. You don't have to call someone 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
these are the rules. Like again, here we go. These are the rules. So it's like they didn't do their financial aid documents on time, so I'm chasing them. I'm chasing them. I'm chasing them. I'm calling all day, and that's the part of my job that I was telling you about before that literally I hate. I hate it because I could be spending time on students that have an 88 and above, right? They're doing well. They're posting in class. they love school or they need a little bit more support instead of me chasing someone who after the first 2 or 3 days they're not answering the phone. They should drop off. I shouldn't even bother with them anymore because in regular school, in real school, no one chases you to go to class. If you don't go to class and you fail, who did you, no one is chasing you at all. They're not calling you. You didn't do your
Right.
financial aid documents on time. Okay, you're pulled from class. Goodbye. See you another semester. And there's
Yep.
no one like they that you either do your work and you take care of your business or you don't go to school. Period. And you have to want to go to school more than I want it for you. And I've actually told people that. I can't want this more than you do.
Yeah.
I already have a master's degree. I do not need school. This is for you. So if you don't want to go to school, you tell me and I'll take you out. And they're always like, no, I want to do school. But I mean, you can't imagine, Lindsay, how many people I have to call all day long. Call, beg. Hey, you forgot to do your assignment last night. And I'll tell you why. Because my job is based upon numbers. So it's not based upon the support I give to my
Ugh.
good students, but it's based upon how many students I get to the end of their first class. So if I have 50 students, a start date is
Oh.
every Tuesday. And this is a real thing. I have hundreds of students that I have to call every Monday and Thursday. So every Tuesday, I have a start date. There's 30 to 50 students starting. I call all of them. Okay. And then the ones who don't post their introduction, I then have to call them the next day and the next day and the next day and keep calling. So out of 50 students, I have a number. Maybe I have to have 35 post their introduction. And if I have less than 35, then that's a mark against me. By yeah, by the end of the 5 weeks,
What?
of the 35, maybe I have to have 27 finish. If I have less than 27, that's a mark against me. And I have to go into a big meeting with the managers and the VP, and I have to explain what happened. And this, I mean,
Oh.
I have people who go homeless. They lose their people dying from COVID. Their parents are dying. Their dog died. Their sons. You can't imagine how many things people go through. Like in a just a 5 week period,
Yeah.
just because I talked to a lot of people and they, th- they just stop calling. They don't want to do the like financial aid. They don't. It's just so many different things, and then I have to explain, and it doesn't matter because it's all counted against me, which is the exact reason why I told you I can't keep doing this. This isn't fun. It's my job is no longer about students that are doing good and celebrating their success. My job is simply chasing people who don't want to go to school, wasting my time all day on people who have ghosted me and aren't doing their work, and why didn't you turn in this, and we've got this, and this is a deadline, we've got the red flag on this, and blah blah blah. And I just feel like I don't think I can do this anymore because I just don't care.
Yeah. You are
And I'm
literally the
being
micromanager.
micromanaged. Yes.
And
Well,
you're
I
also
tell my
being
students, like, hey,
micromanaged. Yeah.
I meet you where you are. So my students that are doing great, I don't micromanage them at all. I just call them and say, "Hey, don't forget you have an assignment." And most of the time they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for reminding me. Completely forgot." Because they're working, right? They got lives. So I always tell them like, "Hey, I'm just here to take
Yeah.
some of the weight off of you. So you don't have to remember when something's due because I'm going to call you and remind you anyway." And they're like, "Oh God, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Thank you." Because they've never had anybody care. But yeah, but the people who don't post, for sure. I have to call them 3 to 5 times a day and they check.
Ugh.
My managers check to see if you call red flag people 3 to 5 times a day. And then I have to have a meeting about it. And I hate it. I
Oh,
literally
hell
hate
no.
it. I've cried and been like, I can't do like you guys. And it's, oh my gosh, I mean, we're so off topic, right? But the point is just like, even the verbiage that they use. So they'll say things like, you lost 90 students in like a 9 month period. This was the last My last meeting, this is what they
God.
said to me. You lost 90 students. And I said, I disagree with the term lost, and I would like for you to stop saying it. And my manager was like, well, what would you like me to say? I would say, I would like to say we dropped. We dropped. Like I didn't lose them, right? Losing them would indicate failure
Right.
upon my part in some way, that I failed to provide my students with the support they need. Okay. So that's me calling and reminding them and chatting on them and checking on them and making sure they're doing great and keeping up with their financial aid docs because they don't know. They're depending on me, right? So if I lost them, that would mean that I didn't do my job in some way. Now, if they dropped, I just feel that those are two different things. Okay? They dropped, meaning they hold their responsibility on their end. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's it. That like I didn't lose them. They dropped. And if you could just use that term, and after that, she did. She did. She was like, okay, well, we lost or dropped. I know it doesn't feel like anything to you, but it does to me. It does to me. I didn't lose anybody. 90 people, they dropped. They chose to withdraw. We also give them the option to withdraw. Like it's their choice. They can choose to not come to school, and it shouldn't be against me at all. Those people that drop out shouldn't be against my numbers in any sort of way. Hate
No,
it. Hate
that's
it.
ridiculous. I can't imagine. Like I think that's one of the pivotal things about going to a higher education is you are accountable for yourself. This is maybe the first time in your life you are actually accountable. And if you hadn't learned that yet, this is a great way to learn that because the universe, the world does not give a fuck about you. And that is a hard lesson to learn. But if you're going to keep holding somebody's hand and telling somebody else that they are accountable for somebody else's behavior when it's not even a minor child that
Yeah,
is
it's
theirs,
it's
oh,
all
hell no.
because it comes down from the top people. And the top people, they aren't educators. They only care about money. So, they've got to you've
Yeah.
got to finish your first class for them to get their money. So, any students that we lose, that 90 students that drop, that was 90 students times $14,000 a year. So, whatever that number is, it's a lot of money to them. To me, I feel like those people
Sure.
aren't going to be successful anyway. So, you know what I mean? Like they're not going to if they weren't going to be successful in school anyway. People drop. That's just what they do. I probably dropped out of college 5 times before I actually finished because shit happens. And I just know that there was no one at any of my schools
Yep.
that got in trouble for me dropping. It was my decision. I withdrew.
Yeah. And I think that like it just, it's again like what I think is kind of what we're opening our eyes to nowadays with our society and the way that everything is structured is like too many jobs are based on numbers and money and not about the good quality of work. For instance, like you describing your current job feels very much like one of my very first paid jobs as in the mental health field, which was working for Medicaid. I think Medicare is the older people one,
Oh,
right? And Medicaid
Medicare
is the like
is the old
everybody.
people, yeah, and then Medicaid is for
Medicare is
like low
okay.
income.
So yes, so I did I was like a mental health specialist or whatever you would call it, where it was like I had my bachelor's degree. I would pick up kids who were low income. I would have 8 hours of billable time I had to spend with each kid each week. They the families pretty much wanted their kids to be medicated, so they would always make their psychiatry appointment. And no matter how hard I tried to bother, pester, stalk the families to get my 8 hours legitimately, I could hardly ever get it. We would have standing appointments where I'd plan to come over for, 2 to 3 hours a couple times a week to spend it with the kids and the family and do some skills development for the
Mm-hmm.
kids and discuss with the family skills development. And we would have the same appointment every week, time and time again. And what would be so funny is I would pull up, and as soon as I pull up, all the lights go out
Right.
and nobody's answering the door because they don't want me there. Let's just be real. Why would they want me there? They got what they wanted, which was the medication. Their kids are calm. They can now work their job or do whatever. And they did not see the value in some bachelor level mental health person showing up to their door telling them how to live their life, right? So that their kids could be well
Yeah.
behaved. It's like, no, fix my kid, return him back to me. So we had to get creative on ways to get these hours filled. But often, more times than not, almost every single time, I couldn't meet my hours because you don't get paid for driving. You don't get paid for pulling up to their door, knocking on the door for 10, 15 minutes, calling them. They don't pick up, all these things, trying to address the issues at another time. It's like if you're not with that kid or the family, you're not getting paid. So I was chronically being pulled in with my bosses telling me that, like, my numbers are not good enough. I need to get my numbers up because then they're not
Well,
going to
what do
get
they want
paid
you to
from
do?
the
Lie?
state. And finally, well, I worked for two different companies in two different states. The first company was at least smart enough to not have, the bosses didn't directly tell me to lie, but one of the women that I would go with, we would do like group therapy sessions. And so she had a van. And so we'd all together pick up all the kids together. And as soon as you pick up one kid, your hour starts, and your hour starts with all the kids now. So there were tricks that the other staff would teach me, and it didn't feel good. But, and beyond those times, I did not, like, she would charge hours for when we would just shop, just her and I. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. At least I can say I had a kid in the car that I was talking to, and like, that was a little shady and I didn't like that. But the second job that I worked at, in a different state, they pulled me in and straight up said to me, we need to retrain you. And I was like, okay, cool. Because if you got a trick, then I would love to not be wasting my time on this. And it literally was, well, you drove, so you can charge this amount. Oh, well, you did this, so you can charge that amount. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And they were super shady because shortly after I quit, because I was like, yeah, this isn't worth it. And they didn't want to pay me. And it was like 3 months in the rears for all your payments. So I had to work for
What?
3 months before I even got my first check, because they said, well, we don't get paid for your job until 3 months after the work that you've done. So that's when you'll get paid.
Um,
I didn't know that that was illegal, that they can't do that. And so, yeah, yeah, I didn't know. I was in my mid 20s, so I had no clue that that was completely illegal. But yeah, they got away with that. And then when they tried to just deny me completely of my last paychecks, I, told them that that wasn't cool. And then I sent them a certified letter. And then they finally were like, okay, fine, we'll pay you. I was like, yeah, I just want the money that I earned. Like, fuck off. But that shows like the fucked up system that we're in. It's like, it's not about doing good work. Same with working at the prison, which, I sure I'll talk about this someday, but just briefly, it was never about the inmates actually getting good mental health treatment. It was all about, did you check the boxes? Did you do this appointment within, the scheduled amount of time? Not how good of service did you provide, or did we actually have a change in behavior, or did people not like stab each other? Like, maybe that's a good measure to look at. And it wasn't really that at all. It was how do we push numbers? How do we, make compliance look good? But it wasn't because we were doing good work. It was like, oh no, 15 minutes with an inmate once every 3 months is somehow mental health treatment, and we're supposed to meet goals. And it's like, oh no, you don't. For 15 minutes, that's like a appointment with a psychiatrist. What are you going to talk about in 15 minutes with an inmate, by the way, who you have to earn their trust? They don't just trust people and then you change their clinician every 4 to 5 months. They're not going to trust clinicians, period. Like, it's just,
oh, I know.
ugh, the system
It all
fucking
sucks.
sucks.
That's why I wish it would all just fall.
Mm-hmm. It is. It'll be interesting how this all plays out over the next, couple of years or so. But yeah, it's disheartening that we've gotten to this place, because one of the other things that Lily and I are also have a common bond in is that we both have degrees in mental health. She
Psychology,
has
yeah.
her. You have your master's in. Yeah, so we both have our degrees in psychology, and we both have very fun, exciting, radical ideas as to how we actually want to see things change within our field. And so we bonded over that a bit on her podcast. But yeah, we both have a love and possible hate for mental health. I don't know. Well, how would you
Yeah, so
classify
that's
your
probably very
thoughts and feelings
accurate
about mental health?
actually. I love it, as I think that it is something that everyone needs and should get. But I do hate it for the fact that there's a lot of historical kind of backdrop to mental health that a lot of people don't understand, and I think that the people who need the most mental health, the black community, are the people who are also the most harmed from it if they go to get it. And they are terrified to go and tell all of their business to usually white people, because that's who's in there. And it's not to say there aren't any black mental health, there are. But if you live in a place like where I live in Colorado, it's predominantly white and Mexicans. And then in the higher education, people that have the more higher education, it's a predominantly white place in that aspect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to go, be just a regular black person? I've got all these different things that have happened to me, and I'm going to go and talk to someone I do not relate to at all. And they don't relate to me in any way. They can't understand because there's too much of a divide, you know. Um, and I would say
Right.
that I would like for it to be less punitive for people to go and talk to people, and just kind of it, again, it's for support. So if someone comes in, and this is not talking about someone has murdered someone, right, and they're coming to tell you, right, or someone is actively abusing a child and they're just coming to get it off their chest, and then they just walk off and go back to hurting their kid. Like this is not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about if
Right.
if the reason someone is abusing their child is because of a lack of education in how to deal with anger, betrayal, abandonment, past traumas, things that have happened to them, maybe things that have happened to the child, maybe the child is also going through things, then what we need is re-education, right? Not necessarily to take the kids away, put the parent in
Mm-hmm.
jail, but the parent needs some coping mechanisms, the kid needs some coping mechanisms, and everybody needs to learn how to adequately deal with their feelings. And people are terrified how they feel. And especially in the black community, we're always taught to hold you can't, like, even me, I can't get upset in an all white place. When I'm at work, if I get upset, immediately people are like, "Oh my gosh, calm down." And I'm like, "I'm calm. I am calm. You're not calm. Your not calm is uncalming me." And if I get like frustrated in any way, and this is when we were, because now we're working from home. So, but if I've had moments where I'm just like, oh, I'm just frustrated. And immediately my manager's like, "Can we go and talk in the, like, yeah, okay, whatever." And they're like, "What's wrong?" Nothing. I'm seem on edge. Well, I'm getting there. You know what I mean? Like, I can't even be mad like just a regular person, because for some reason, if I get upset, like, people are afraid, and I'm like the least violent person. I'm not the one you should be afraid of if someone gets upset. Can you locate where Brad is? If he gets upset, he might shoot everybody. Like, I'm fine. I'm just a bit frustrated at whatever, right? And, shout out to Brad's out there, but like, whatever. It's just like, I'm not going to hurt anyone or anything. But if I get upset, I can't even really, fully acknowledge that. But I have a friend who literally has stood up and screamed at her desk. Little white, small, like, well, just 5 feet tall, no
Wow.
threat to anyone except she's an Aries, which means she's the threat. Okay. Her temper is beyond anything I've ever seen in my life. She gets so mad, okay? And I always have to calm her down, right? I'm just like, "Hey, it's all right. You're good. We're cool. Let's breathe." She's like, "Oh, ah," and she'll like scream and get mad and everything, and everyone's just like, "Oh, Chelsea, are you okay? Oh, what is everything all right? How can we help?" And I'm just like, "Oh, oh, oh, okay." No one pats me on the back and goes, "Oh, Alicia, is there anything we can
Wow.
do?" They're just like, "Hey, calm down. You don't have to get so frustrated." And I'm just like, yeah, everyone gets mad. So it's like who is going
Yep.
to we
Yep.
you so in the black community you're just taught to hold yourself, push yourself down, no feelings. The men, they don't cry, and women don't, you got to be strong and be tough, all this
Mm-mm.
other stuff. And and people can walk all over you and they can do whatever they want, but you can't react. And so in what world is
Yep.
is is the disconnect is so strong. It's like no one is going to go into a place where they don't feel safe. They don't feel calmed, you
Right.
know? Right. They don't feel
Heard.
related to.
Cared about.
You know what I'm saying? You remember when I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
alike we are." Like I couldn't believe it. Like still to this day I'm just like,
Yes.
"Holy shit. Wow. Wow." Because that's not something I would have thought. I didn't know we were this much similar. And even though you're super cool, I still was like, you know, okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, cool white girl, great, that's cool. But I didn't know that we had this much in common. Like, I swear to God, got off the podcast with you, and was telling my husband, I was like, "I think I'm in love with this girl." He just laughed, and I was like, "No, you don't understand. She knew about colorism when I was telling. Like, I felt like I was just like I felt like I was just a person, me, talking to another person, you. Nothing. There was no barrier. There's nothing that I couldn't say to you
Yes.
that normally I would hold back
Yes.
if I'm talking to someone, especially for the first time, right? I'm not going to just go balls out and say
Yeah.
whatever. But I do not feel like that with you. I feel like, wow, you blew my head. And I told my husband, I was like, I can't believe how knowledgeable she was on things. And he was like, and he doesn't care. He's just like, "Oh, okay, cool." I was like, "Okay, whatever. Fuck you. You don't get anything." But that's a rare thing, I think. It would be rare for someone from inner city Chicago who has gone through whatever stereotypical beliefs you have about Black people in Chicago. Okay. Let's just use those. Whatever stereotypical beliefs you have about a Black person from Chicago, that person goes into a white therapist on the outskirts of Chicago. Their guard is up.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And even if that therapist was cool, I mean, how long is it going to take that they're going to try that therapist that may understand before they just give up because they feel unheard, unseen, and uncared for? I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, the boundaries are just it's I personally don't I don't see a lot of I haven't had a lot of my own Black clients. Like I have had some, but I haven't had a lot. And I'm like, it won't matter if I'm cool or not cool, if I understand
Hmm.
or don't understand, if just by my face, automatically, no matter who I am, I represent a group of people that have done fucked up shit. And even if in my whiteness I have done everything in my power to not only educate myself and to check my own biases and to do everything I can to just be a good fucking human to other fucking humans, it doesn't
Yep.
matter because at the end of the day, if I
Hmm.
walk in and they go, well, she represents what I hate, it takes people that don't have that to break their walls down with me and
Yeah.
to let me in without that problem. And I am representing a group of people that have done fucked up shit to them, to their family, to their ancestors, and
I
so
think
it's a
you're
huge
I
barrier to
think you're right. I
cross.
think
And so
even
why
if
would they even
I,
bother
as a
with
Black
me?
woman
Why? I wouldn't.
therapist, had Black people as my, I think that I too would still have, even without the racial aspect, right? It's hard enough to break the barriers down for and the walls that people have, right? That's hard enough just to get someone to trust you, to tell you intimate details of their life. And then you add in the racial aspect, and
Yep.
I would go so far as to say it's not that they hate you, they are scared of you. And so even though, you know, I think, Black people are terrified of white people, and not always in a way that you can see, but in a way that we've hidden well. Like we just hide it well. We just know when you're in an all white space that you've got to be, you have to be under, like you can't be too seen, like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm saying it loud enough, but like, or right enough. It's just like you just want to fly under the
Yeah. No,
radar because you don't want any problems, you don't want anybody judging you. They already probably got these judgments, so you just want to be easy, be cool, you know what I mean? um and I think that it wouldn't matter even if you came right out and as soon as they walked in you go Black Lives Matter, right? Just right out the gate, like, hey, I'm here for you. Blah blah blah. It doesn't even matter. They're still gonna be like, okay, whatever. And yeah, and most
what's her
people
game,
that
right? That's what I
I
would
feel like
think.
a lot of people that maybe go to therapy that are of minority groups are people that are forced to go. It's not because they choose, and some people do. And it's great. I just wish that the stigma of talking wasn't such a bad thing. It's in the Black community, you just don't talk. You do not tell your secrets. You do not tell family business at all. You do not tell people what goes on inside your home because that you just never know what could happen. It's a bad, and I think this is a lot of people. I
Well,
think Latinos have the same rule. Like,
white people too. It's and we are the oppressors, and we still not maybe it's less than out of all of the racial groups, and we have started to accept this
yeah.
more. But my parents' generation, which you and I are the same age, I think 2 days apart, and I'm 1 year older than you. So our parents are from the same fucking generation. And in my parents' generation, you do not talk. You don't talk to your parents. You don't have tough conversations with your parents, but you sure as fuck don't tell other people about your business
Hmm.
because we need to look on the outside of the world that we are a perfect family. Now, for us, it was a different reasons. We want to look perfect and be like the happy go lucky, perfect family. It wasn't because we were afraid people were going to take our children from our homes or imprison our loved ones. So it was different motivations, but we too, it's like you don't talk. You don't fucking talk and tell our shit. So it does have a totally different, like, scary effect when you're, it's not just like, oh, the shame, clutch your pearls. How dare the family know that, daddy molested so and so, or, that kind of shit. But it's like, but the fear of children being removed from the home wasn't an actual threat as much as it is for, Black, Latino, Asian, Native American, Indigenous, like all that, you know, Indian and all the other cultures out there, that actually is a reality.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
much, much
And
scary. I can
I
understand what you mean
understand
by
being on
that.
both ends of the, fence, I guess I could say. Like I know w- I know what it's like to be in a family that you don't tell what outside of what's going on. Now, in the family, they talk about you all day long. They tell everybody, right? But outside of your family, you don't talk about what's going on in
Yeah.
in your household at all. Um, and then, of course, I do have a psych degree, so it's like I'm all about communication, and I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's a line. So you have to find someone you feel safe with. That's it. It's not about telling your business, but it's about healing past traumas. And in order to do that, you sometimes need someone to just kind of hear. You need to say it out loud sometimes. There are a lot of secrets people have, things that they have dealt with that they've never told anyone about. And they've been dealing with this pain and this trauma and this whatever for years. And until they even just get it out, then they can't even hear. As they hear the words, it's like, oh my gosh, right? And then after you do that and you work past those traumas and those ugly thoughts that you might have had, and the things that people have said to you, that's when you begin healing. And that's the only thing that I think this that I'm into about therapy and mental health is healing. you know, I want people to be healed, and I want my
Yeah.
community to be healed in a way that we are able to move forward. So, I say this as a double thing. So it's like I want us to move forward because there's a lot of people who have this belief that Black people think they're victims. And that really infuriates me because that's not true, right? Um, y- we don't think of ourselves as victims per se, but I think we all just know that we've been oppressed and we're still in an oppressed system, right? So in order to overcome that, we have to be able to deal with oppressive systems on top of family generational curses, right? People, I mean, and this isn't even a race thing at this point. Sexual molestation across the board is one
Oof.
of the most well kept fucking secrets. And it's infuriating that people will I don't know, they'll talk about you for everything under the sun, right? They'll talk about this, they'll talk about that, but then no one will talk about Uncle such and such being a pedophile. And he needs help because maybe he too
Yep.
was molested or whatever. So it's like this is familial generations of just secrets and passing down demons, and I mean demons as in just bad things, not demons as in little Christian concepts, right? But but like, and no one wants to talk about it. But then we have this idea of a little girl when she's acting a certain kind of way, where we call her fast, right? Fast ass little girl, which always has infuriated me because n- people will put all of this, I don't know, put all of this blame on women in society and girls and how they act, and never make men and
Yep.
women, okay, because women can be pedophiles and abusers as well, um, and never put any responsibility on
Mm-hmm.
adults. So you've got men who are constantly sexualizing children, girls too. Women do it too. They're little boys and they'll be like, oh, I bet he has 100 girlfriends. What? He's 4. Right? And I mean, people do that, or there'll be little girls and they'll be like, oh, I hope you keep her locked in the room till she's 16. Like stupid shit, right? It's like no one is really even trying to build strong, good sexual boundaries for kids. Just strong sexual understanding of like morals or I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's like we're just allowing things to happen, right? No one talks about it. And then when the kid is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, gets pregnant, then it's just like, oh, now we care, but it's all the girl's fault, right? No one wants to talk about anything that has happened for the past 3, 4
Yeah.
generations. We know Uncle whoever has been doing this for since he was whatever, and no one wants to talk. Oh, we just say just stay away from him. No, that motherfucker needs some help, and he need his ass beaten. He needs to be in jail. It any of the three or all of them is fine with me. In any order is okay as well. Like I'm okay with any order that it happens. But we need to take some fucking responsibility. And it can only happen when people start talking. And then you've got the Me Too movement, which people are like, well, why didn't they tell? Because people, when you do tell, then you've got people who say stuff like that.
Mm.
So they're terrified to talk about it. But then they finally start talking about it, and then they have to explain why they couldn't talk about it for 15 years because because it's a shame. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many interlocking
Yep.
pieces to mental health and patriarchy and racism and oppression and fear and shame. It's like all interlocking in mental health that I don't know that we could ever really unjumble it, but I would love to like be a catalyst to just helping people come out of their fear and into their spirituality, whatever it is, right? And use their spirituality as an anchor so that they can heal themselves and be happy, be free, and just realize that shit is shit, right? The past is the past, and we can unlock all those things, and you can move forward into a happier state once you've figured out all of these things from the past. Period. And I just think that therapy is one way to do it.
Yeah, with a good
Mm.
therapist, I mean, I just know that so many therapists do damage, and not that they do it intentionally. Like I have definitely think that I just, for me personally, this is an overgeneralization for our community as a whole. But
Oh,
for
that's
people in the mental
good.
health field, I feel like we are all wounded healers, that we all came from traumatic experiences where we're like, I don't want anyone else to suffer. And remind me in a moment, and if I forget, to come back to this point, but that we are wounded healers, and that we don't want others to suffer. So then we get in the mental health field to help others not suffer. But if we didn't do our work to heal our wounds, we then go and hurt our clients inadvertently, not like sex with your client kind of hurt, but like inadvertently hurt them. And if we do our work, then man, we're fucking bomb, because we've been in the darkness, we've come out, we know how to get out, we know what it looks like, we know what it feels like, we know how to help walk people out that scary path with love and support. But if we don't do our fucking work, we either create awful legislation, awful policies, oppressive practices. The things that we say and do to our clients can be harmful, microaggressions, all that kind of stuff, or things where our ego is far more what we are going after than actually helping people, which is, I think, why you and I have had so
Yeah.
much frustration with our field, is like, there's way too much fucking ego. And if we don't check our shit, we hurt people, and that isn't cool. And so I
Okay,
did actually
good.
remember to come back. So this is great because my memory seems to be a little bit better today. But but like I ascribe to like a soul contract that for me it made sense when somebody said in the book Journey of the Souls that like we have planned out in our souls when we come and incarnate on earth that certain big things will happen in our lives to sort of guide our trajectory in our life to learn specific lessons. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And when I think about the wounded healer concept, I think of if we're all badass spirits that we're like, fuck, we want to help other humans, or we want to go help humans because maybe we're star seeds, who fucking knows? We come in and we say we want to help. We want to help people out of their suffering. I know that I must go into suffering as a child to then be motivated to help others come out of suffering, but I have to go through the fire. And some people get lost along the way in their ego, and they just want those quick, easy, like hits of like, oh, you're awesome, you're amazing, blah blah blah, and they forget their way on the path, and they can do some damage. But for me, that really made sense to me. Like, yeah, I could see why I would want the specific family that I had with all of the specific things that happened, and why, I would choose that to then be able to come here as Lindsay today and say, okay, I found a way to not only be a therapist, but to also then blend spirituality in my therapy in hopes that I've got my ego in check and that I did enough of my work and keep doing my work because I'm far from healed, but I'm much better than I used to be, in hopes that I'm actually helping people, handing them a flashlight, saying, you
Gosh,
ready?
yeah,
Let's go. Let's head forward.
that's
And
beautiful.
that's my hope.
That's really beautiful. I want to do the same. Yeah.
You already are. You just are doing it
Ugh.
in a different way. But you are definitely, if you are having to harass your students, and be a leader to them, and I know how much you've been a leader and a supporter in the soberish community. So you are, even if it's not exactly what you want it to be yet, it is still your
Yeah, I
map
do agree.
in that direction to be
But I
helping people. You
just
already are
I
helping
wish I was
people.
doing it in a way that felt real to, more less icky to me, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like it's an icky way, and I'm getting to help some people, which is good.
Yep.
And that's really all you can ever hope for anyway, right? Is you get to help some people who you come across. um I just personally wish that I could do it in the way that made me feel better, like I was in charge of it. You know what I mean? Because if I've got 10 clients and I help six, I feel like in the job I'm in, they would put me down for the four that didn't get helped instead of praising me for the six. Whereas if I could do it my way, I would be praising myself for the
Mm-hmm.
six and not worry about the four. The four will come when they're ready to come. It's just how I feel. And I feel like everyone comes to their own realization at their own time.
Yep.
So to me, hate to get back on my students or whatever, but I always, when they're like ready to get out of school, I'm always like, hey, whenever you're ready, let me know. Because there were times when I wasn't ready for school and no one made me feel bad about it. You know what I mean? So I just don't get it. And if I could just
Yeah.
kind of be, like you said, like a guiding beacon, I don't know what the word was, flashlight or something you said. Um, if I could be that to people and feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm doing my best and that's all I can do, I would feel great about myself and who I help. And at this moment in time, I have to remind myself that I'm helping people because it doesn't feel like I am. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank God that your job sucks so bad, because it is going to be your own flashlight to get you the fuck out of there and not settled in complacency. You know what I mean? Like I I said this to one of my clients recently. It was like her ex-husband is such an asshole. And I was like, hey, instead of us focusing on how much he's an asshole, let's thank him for being the biggest asshole, because now you have no choice, right? Because if you said just now, if he was even an ounce nicer to you, you would continue to bend over backwards for him, doing more than you're supposed to. So thank God he's a fucking asshole. And you have no choice but to get the fuck away, right? Because anything less, you might be there for far too long. And that was exactly sort of the sentiment that I took with my prison job. Was like, I hated it so bad, just the way you're describing it. It was like I could do my job 150% better than most. And if I screwed up one little thing, or if I wasn't a yes man to the boss because, he's a raging narcissistic bully who, was actually harming people, actively harming people, everything in that, in like a HR
Oh my
handbook
God.
as to what not to do to your employees, he did all of it times 10. And I had to witness it because I was one of his like directly lower people. So I heard everything he said about all the staff, all the games he would try to play to fuck with the staff and get them moved out or to quit, like all that shit. It was just disgusting. And whenever I wasn't his yes person, I was in the boat. But I was nice enough. And so he would forget every once in a while, because I'm not an asshole. It would just be like, if you ask me to do a job, I'm going to do it. I'm not like you, and I'm not going to play games. So even when you're an asshole to me, I'm still not going to play games. I'm still going to do my job. And so every once in a while, he'd like me again and think that he should trust me. I'm like, why did you ever think you should trust me with this like harassment and bullying that you do to people? But anyway, so thank God that job got as awful as it did, because I had no other choice but to then stack up all of my opportunities. I was depressed. I wasn't fun to be around. I isolated myself. Like, I was classic depression, and hated my job. I was miserable on the weekends. Like, nothing good was going on. And somebody was like, I don't understand why you don't do private practice on the side. And I'm like, with what energy? Because I come home every day exhausted. My weekends are spent being exhausted. And they're like, just try it. So I did. And so I opened up a little private practice and began providing therapy to the community that I was living in. And it was crazy because I could see, at some point, like 5 or 6 people in a row with like a 10-minute break. If I was spot on with my times, a 10-minute break between each one, boom, 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 boom. And I could come home and be more energized after seeing my clients than going to work for the first 2 hours on a Monday after a long vacation, drained. And I was like, there's something to this. And I just kept at it. And, it was about a little less than a year that I was doing my private practice, and then starting to like look at some other work options, because I saw a shaman, and she's like, I think a shaman and Jessa and maybe somebody else. And it was like, you're not going to last. Because I had 5 or 6 more years left of working for the government to have my $680,000 student loan debt paid off. And I was like, well, I have to stay in my 10 years. And they're like, you aren't likely to even make it in another 5 more months. And I was like, I have to. You're ridiculous. And they were right. And I couldn't make it. And luckily, I already had a private practice. And then I was like, okay, what other jobs? So I was job hunting everywhere. And it just so happened, it perfectly aligned that when COVID happened, I have a major medical illness, and I had a doctor's note saying that I needed to work from home for like, it was like 1 month at first, and then COVID didn't stop. And so then it was like an extra 2 months on top of that. And my job, I could do 100% from home. All my meetings, all my reports, everything I could do from home. And my boss had honored that at first. And then all of a sudden, arbitrarily, they said, sorry, but you actually have to come into the office 50% of the time. And I was like, okay, but I have a doctor's note saying that it's like actually detrimental to my health, because we had active cases of COVID all across the prison. And there was no place I could go where I wasn't around officers that were working different yards and secretaries moving yards. And so, like, no matter what, if I was going to cross over the barbed wire, I was going to be putting myself at risk. And they're like, yeah, sorry, we can't honor that. And I was like, okay, cool, because I guess I'm going to put in my notice then. Because I was like, I'm not giving my fucking life to a job that gives no shits about me or my health, and this is arbitrary. I am doing my job. I am not doing my job. It's just that you all don't like I'm not a yes man, and that I actually stood up to you guys. And so you threw me a bone because you knew you had to, and now you found a workaround because because I was working with the enemy, filing cases against the people
Mm.
that were bullying us. And so when that finally got exposed, they didn't want to play ball with me anymore. They wanted to make me come back to the office, even though, and I was like, I'll be fucking damned. I'll be fucking damned if I lose my life because of something like this. Because at the end of the day, they won't care if I'm dead or not. They'll just pay out a lawsuit, everything will be fine, and I will be dead. And I was like, fuck that, I am not doing that. So I stood my ground, and I quit. And luckily I had started at an online therapy service, which is a third of my pay that I was getting, with no benefits, no nothing. But I was like, I will fucking make this work. And because it was a third of my pay, I not only, had to do my private practice, do this online therapy, but then also start to look into becoming a coach so that I could provide spiritual services to clients across the state. I didn't have to be stuck to just California alone, because I was like, look, I love giving spiritual therapy to people, but not everybody wants therapy, not everybody needs therapy. And not everybody wants spiritual therapy. Some people just want straight laced therapy. And that wasn't making my heart sing, but I'll do it. And with all three of these things going on right now, I love what I do. I, yes, have some rough days here and there, but for the most part, I love what I do. I love who I work with. I love what I provide. And it was my work sucking that forced me to finally pull the trigger and do what I was called to do. And so I think that is where you're at this point, that you are being called,
Yeah,
to come
I
to
I
this
just
other
don't
side and
know
to
how
do
to
this,
even get
the work that
started,
you
but
were
it's
actually meant to
like
do.
I am for sure at the point where I'm willing to really just I'm open to something new and ready to try something else, cuz if I can just take what I know now, you know, um and just apply it to literally anything else. Like literally anything else. And I would be completely happier, you know. I mean, the thing is that I guess my fear is just that, the job I have is stable, right? My income is stable. Every 2 weeks I get my check. I don't have to worry about anything. I've got an HR department I can talk to if things go wrong, if, there's everything's all set up. I don't have to do anything, right? I just have to clock in, do my job, clock out. And in between all of that, I got to deal with some bullshit. But, in the 3D, my check comes every 2 weeks to my account, right? My fear is just that I've never, I've never wanted to be, I've always wanted to have a stable, income. So I've never wanted to be the person that just tries something. Oh, I'll just try something new and let's see if I can get clients and all of that. But I'm really getting to the point where even my check is not sustaining me enough, if that makes sense. Like it's the most money I've ever made, and it's great, but I
Yep.
need to still try something, even if it's just supplement my income for a moment until I can figure out how to switch out, how to really just get something else going. That's where I am though. I really am. I just don't even know how to I don't even know how to get started. I don't know what to do.
Me neither. When it was first said to me that I would not be able to last, I was in the same boat. Like, how the fuck would I ever be able to do this? And you don't need to know. You don't need to know at this point what the end result will look like. All you need to do, the first exercise I think that anyone told me was write down what your perfect day would be. Like, just write out, and maybe you write it out different ways each day, and you just write it for like a week or a month or what have you. But you start narrowing down what you do want and what you don't want. And I personally tell people do it separate, right? Because you don't want fucking universe getting shit confused that you're just trying to realize what you don't want anymore in your life and think that that is what you do want. But then you work on ways to start manifesting that. And you don't need to know what the picture looks like at the end. You just need to know, what would your day look like if it was perfect? And that was an assignment that was given to me, I want to say like maybe 6 to 8 months before I jumped ship. I had no fucking clue. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm paying off my student loans. I have insurance. I need insurance because I have a medical condition, like all these things. And I'm doing my damn thing and I'm loving it. And I don't make the same amount of money, but I also somehow, this is all working out because with COVID, I don't spend as much money. My student loans are frozen right now anyway. So if I paid, I would just be giving the government fuck money anyway, because
Oh my
my
gosh,
loans will
can
never
we
be
do
paid off
that?
unless
I
they
still have
absolve them,
almost
which, like, please,
70,000 in
can we make that shit
loans.
manifest, y'all? Like,
No,
whew,
I'm good.
we need to.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm cool.
I
Yeah.
will. Do you want to switch? You can take
I didn't
mine.
even know that was a
680. No?
I
No?
didn't know
Oh,
that
okay.
was a
Okay.
possibility.
Right. But like, oh, it's a possibility. It should never be a possibility. And I didn't like fuck around, and I didn't buy a car. I didn't go buy a house. I didn't do any of that shit. I literally walked in with 40,000 and walked away with like 460 or something like that. And since then it's now turned into 680. It's highway robbery, but totally different podcast topic at a different time. But yeah, just, you don't even have to worry about that. You don't even have to think that you have to not have a 3D job. Maybe it's just a different 3D job. Maybe it's a part-time 3D job that gets you
It's
enough
so true.
stability. Who fucking knows what the next 2 years is even going to look like in this country? There may be things that open up that make you having stable income and having an HR department and still being an autonomous being to be able to like do what you love a real possibility. I mean, it's still, I don't think I don't think there's any solid timeline yet as to how this is playing out. So who fucking knows? But start getting that shit manifesting now so you can put in your order early.
I'm
So the
working on it.
universe will know how to
Yeah, I'm
fucking
I'm putting it out
hand you over
there.
that shit.
I've been
Like,
playing around
seriously.
with it since you suggested it to me. Just kind of feeling it out in my head, seeing how, saying it out loud, looking at some websites. And things like that. So I do plan on aiming my intentions to this. I also want to aim my intentions to not having to work at all. So
Well, if you love what you
no,
do, it won't
I've
feel like
had a
work.
job that I
You
love
know,
so much
that's,
that
I
it
know, a
didn't feel
cliched
like
fucking
work. So I
saying,
know
but
what
it's
that
true.
feels like. I know what that feels like. It is possible. I didn't make any much money, but I enjoyed the work.
So it's
So
possible.
there's the switch off, I guess. But if we live on a compound, on a commune, then maybe we don't have to work at all because we'll enjoy what we do.
I'm down for that.
Hey,
And
I
people
already
may
told
be
you
so
I'm okay
mentally
to cook
well that they don't
breakfast,
even
lunch,
fucking
and
need us, and
dinner.
we'll have to find a new trade anyway.
There you
Yeah,
go. Yeah, you can grow
I'll eat it.
stuff.
Shit, I'll just tend to a garden or something. That'll be my
Perfect.
new
I
trade.
told you we were like soulmates, I
I'll
swear.
I'll grow the food that you cook.
Okay.
Seriously. Well, let's wrap things up a little bit, because I could totally talk to you
Ew, that's
for
so
for
gross.
days. But I'm an early riser, as we've talked before. I got up today at 5:30. I swear to, no, I know. It is gross because last 2 mornings, my weekend, my body woke me up at 5:30 and I was like, really, bitch? Because my alarm doesn't even go off till 6. And like, I would have loved to have slept in till 7 on my weekends. And my body was like, oh, hell no, sorry. So yeah, I have an early morning tomorrow, but I definitely feel like we'll be on podcast together more often. And obviously our friendship is only going to be growing more and more, but I want people to know how they
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
find you
So,
and your
my
podcast. And if
podcast
they
is
want to reach
called
out to you
My
in any way,
Magical
how they would do
Life,
that.
conversations about black, white, and shadow spaces between. It is on all podcast podcast forums, so Spotify, Apple, whatever it is you listen to your podcasts on, you can probably find it. I am on Facebook. I'm in the Soberish group, Lily Dominique. I do have an Instagram. I very rarely can remember what it is, so I always have to go and look at it real quick. But let's see, my Instagram, if you want to be bothered with me barely ever posting anything, it is called Ravenclaw Witch 82. And I very rarely go on there, so you can follow my Pisces memes that I now and again place. But other than that, yeah, just listen to the podcast. And shout me, hit me up, inbox me if you want to talk, chat. I'm all good, and I'll be having Lindsay back on my podcast soon, I'm sure, and we're gonna talk some more.
Yeah, and I will post all your information in the show notes. I usually also post like once the podcast is up, which will be tonight or Monday morning, depending on how it goes in the next couple of minutes. But regardless, on Instagram, I always post something, so I will tag you on there so that people can find you super easy and give you some shout outs and some love and let you know how much they enjoyed our conversation. But I appreciate so much not only you having me on your podcast, because that's what kind of started this whole love affair off. I saw you on Soberish. We kind of got connected a little bit through there. And then I listened to your podcast and got to know you more. And I was like, oh shit, we have a lot in common. And then we talked and it was like, holy fuck, we have a shit ton in common. And then, so yeah,
I love
we'll
it.
just watch this love affair between us blossom over the future. So thank you again so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And check out her podcast.
So let's see.
When will our episode drop so that my listeners know?
Monday. But you're probably a couple of weeks out, because I'm still on like episode. So this is going to be episode 5 that'll come out tomorrow, and you're episode 8.
Okay.
So when you come out, I will let you know. I'll tag you in the Soberish group. I'll tag you in my podcast group, and I'll do it on Instagram as well. So, and I'll let you know before I put it out that I'm doing it.
Perfect. And then I will give a shout out to my people so that they know to hop over to yours and listen to the
Beautiful.
other half of the
All right.
conversation and get the
Thank you so
full
much. You too.
beautiful love affair.
Bye.
Awesome. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your love, support, and continuing to listen to my podcast. If you feel called, I would really appreciate you to subscribe to my podcast and rate it and write a review. When you do that, it helps to put my podcast so that more people can get access to it and know about the podcast. Feel free to share it with anyone that you think might benefit from some of these conversations that we're having. And please be sure to follow me. Primarily, I'm on Instagram at the_intuitive_psychologist_111. I know it's a mouthful. I had to set myself apart from all the other people that kind of had similar names, so I apologize for that. On my Instagram, I not only talk about a lot of the things that I I talk about on the podcast, gives you some tips and advice for mental health issues. Every Wednesday, I'm doing a live meditation. The specific time will be to determined, but probably either late afternoon or early evening, Wednesdays Pacific time. And I'm also occasionally on TikTok at Intuitive Psych. You can also email me at intuitive.psych.111@gmail.com. Feel free to email me with any questions, comments, any stories that you'd like to share. And hopefully in the very near future, I will be able to start providing spiritual services because I'm going to manifest that. So if you want to get on the list so that once I get my life sorted on that and get the logistics sorted out so that I can provide spiritual services across state lines, please email me there. If you're in the state of California and you would like to have some work within the spiritual psychology realm, please email the Gmail account and let me know that you heard about me through the podcast, and I will be happy to give you a discounted rate if you mention that you heard me on the podcast. And I'd love to work with you guys. All right. Take care, and I love you all. Stay safe, and remember, you are the light.